Oh,
I know
I
they
don't
got
think I've
really
heard that yet.
it startled me the first time. So yes, I think it's good that they want us all to know. So this meeting is recorded. So Kristin Snowden will be presenting. This is the second week of second Wednesday of the month, and so Kristin joins us each Wednesday on the second Wednesday of the month, and this is our sixth month already. So I know what we're going to be talking about today from your Life
Six.
Anonymous book.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining. My name is Kristin Snowden. I'm a licensed therapist in California and certified life coach. And this is a part of a monthly webinar brought to you by sexandrelationshiphealing.com. It's free. You can access me live the second Wednesday of every month at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. And all the information will be down in the description. But this month or this past year, we've been doing a chapter a month. We've been doing a chapter a month on the topic of how the 12 steps, that are applied in the AA community, how the concepts can be a very tangible, very concrete, um, helpful tool in moving to a transformational place and changing your current life that's not working for you, even if you don't identify as an addict in any kind of way. We don't have to be doing substances or gambling or acting out sexually in some kind of addictive pattern in order to get something from concepts around the 12 steps. So this particular webinar, this is the 6th month. So we are on step 6. And step 6 is talking about we're entirely ready to have God remove all of our defects of character. Now, the AA early community uses the word God, but I've mentioned this many, many times for those of you who struggle with the whole God thing. This can just be a higher power. This can just be the idea that we have gone to every worldly source, therapist, medication, kind of running on that treadmill, trying to perform and be the best people we can be, best parents, best partners, and we can still suffer and struggle. So the idea is that maybe we need to look outside ourselves and ask for help. However, you define that as a higher source, a higher power, that's what we're talking about here. Something that's non-judgmental, that is loves you unconditionally, and can kind of love you in spite of your flaws. So we're entirely ready to have a higher power remove all of our defects of character, and let's talk about the importance of that. So steps 1 through 3 help us identify our problems, and then and lean into the discomfort of owning that we need help from others to fix our issues. The idea is steps 1 through 3 is okay, this is the stuff that's not working. And these are the things that I've tried. This is kind of my definition of insanity. No matter how hard I try, this is just not working. I'm deeply wounded. I'm deeply hurt. I'm frustrated. And then needing to ask people or higher powers outside yourself for help. So kind of waving that white flag saying, I've done my best. My best thinking has got me here. I'm struggling. Please help me. Step 4 then asks us to dig deep and explore all the aspects of our lives, our character defects, our traumas, our hurt, our pain, our struggles, our good, our parts of our character that are wonderful and beautiful and generous, and really hone into the things that have contributed to the struggles that we have in our life. Then the healing begins in step 5, which is what we talked about before. When we share our story with a safe group of others, just maybe even one person, like a therapist or a sponsor, and our higher power, we find that our story can be met with empathy, compassion, and non judgmental acceptance. In the world, I'm a certified Daring Way provider, and so I've done a lot of research and work on the topic of shame, a lot of Brene Brown stuff about how it is just as intricate of a part of our humanity, our psychology, our existence as breathing and wanting to be loved. As long as I want to have humans in my life, we're social creatures, I'm going to have a deep voice inside me saying, but what if you're not enough for it? What if that one error, that mistake, that part of your personality just makes you not enough? And the antidote to that shame, because it's from a social construct, it's a fear of not being enough to be loved by other people. When you share it in a social environment with a trusted person, and a higher power. And it's met with empathy and compassion. It's met with the me too. I hear you. I've made those mistakes before. I can understand that emotion. I can connect with um, that emotion that you're experiencing. I can sit with your hot mess. I can sit with your struggle, and I can still love you in spite of your flaws. That creates the shame resiliency of, okay, maybe I'm not that broken. Maybe this hot mess isn't unfixable, and maybe I can move forward in this. So, understandably so, step 6 makes sense that right after we've kind of dug through all our mud and our swamp, we get to another step towards repairing. So we've owned that this is our good, bad, light, dark. That's step 4. Step 5's owning it so much so, not just internally, but with another person or another group and a higher power to kind of say it and speak it and own it. And then step 6 is really important. They say that it's you just cannot maintain long-term recovery, sobriety, transformation, change without step 6, because you have got to um, sorry, I'm having a brain breakdown. But oh, it's the idea that I've owned what hasn't worked, and now I need to really own these patterns of what's not working. Again, even if it's I've been victimized, even if I have abuse and struggle in my life, sometimes there might have been ways that I have not held my boundaries, really figured out what I do need because I never felt safe enough to figure out who I am, what I need to feel safe. Maybe I've not asserted myself. Now, remember, owning your character defects, so owning the way that you struggle, the way that you'd like to improve who you are, does not equal that you are excusing other people's poor choices. So I want you to hear that, especially because a lot of the people who chime in here are betrayed partners and they have been victims of their partners' really poor choices and character defects, right? So I want you to really own space that I can own that I'm a perfectly imperfect person too. There's been times where I could have done better. I could, now that I know better, I definitely have more information to choose better, to behave better, and that never, ever excuses or cuts out the fact that your partner may have victimized you with his or her character defects. So I just want you to own that. That step 6 is compiling a list of kind of what your character defects are. In the recovery world, often what happens is let's say a recovering addict will do a step 4, kind of dig into his or her good, bad, light, dark, share them with the sponsor as part of step 5. And then the sponsor's kind of taking notes about themes that he or she is hearing about the person's step 4, that, wow, you're really a rageaholic, or you're extremely impulsive and you don't, you ignore consequences and you just behave impulsively when you want it. And you don't care about the promises that you've made or the commitments you've made, and you just plow forward. Or, wow, you operate a lot based on trying to seek your mom or dad's approval when I've seen your history looks like they're just never going to give you what you're looking for. Or you operate a lot out of the trauma of your childhood, but how long can you be using that as kind of an excuse to drive, why you're entitled to go do these really damaging, harmful behaviors to other people? One bad circumstance doesn't cancel out every other bad coping skill and choice that you make from then on. So these are the really tough, brutal character defects that we're talking about here in step 6. So when you're sitting back and you're not obviously an addict, so it might be a little bit harder to figure out what these character defects are. It's really interesting for non-addicts to do it, because often our character defects are social norms quite frequently. When you look at it, we can all look at someone who's abusing alcohol or doing drugs, or regularly having sex with prostitutes or something like that, and go, oh, those are against the rules. Like, you're not allowed to do that. And you're breaking a lot of promises and you're hurting yourself and you're not following the law. Um, but non-addicts, their character defects, where they might struggle, might be a little more insidious. It might the symptoms of it might just be that you're unhappy, you feel like life is that you're just kind of flailing around, you're not really sure who you are, what you want from life, you're not getting what you want from your life, etc. But it's important to kind of look character defects. I kind of generally define them as anything where you have to do the behavior or you're doing the action despite your commitments and promises and the values you have and the goals you have. And in order to do the behavior, you tend to do it in a lying, manipulative type way. So let me kind of explain the difference between character defects of perhaps addicts and non-addicts. So let's say addicts, the character defects are, using the drugs or sexually acting out, having extramarital affairs, or stealing money to support their habits or abusing substances. Strangely enough, from all that we know from addiction, a lot of these behaviors were the addict's best attempt at kind of down regulating and co regulating and coping with the life that they had. So at the time, with their limited understanding, because they are kind of like this, I'm just going to get my needs met and I'm going to do what I got to do to get through life. And this is my best friend. Don't take it away from me. So I'm going to lie, cheat, and steal to keep it going. And all the consequences be damned. I'm going to live in a very small world with not realizing any consequences. That for a while, arguably, worked for them. It didn't work for them because unfortunately to do those behaviors it was very shame filled, because the secrets you're living, the double life you're living to protect this acting out behavior, make you feel even crappier. It doesn't actually free your soul, and you don't cope and go, okay, I've gotten through this and I know how to deal with it in a healthy way, and I'm staying true to myself and I'm authentic and I'm living my best life. No, you have to lie, cheat, steal. You have to break all your promises. You have to break your commitments. You have to do things behind your loved one's back. You have to constantly question, when are they going to find out? When is this whole thing going to go belly up? When are they going to call me out and know that I'm just a walking, talking liar that just destroys people's lives every day, including myself, right? That's what makes them character defects. Now, you can kind of go to the other spectrum of non addicts and start thinking about it. Like I'm just thinking about what my general character defects are. And obviously they're more prevalent and more surfaced when not in my best state. I'm in a constant stress state, right? Where so I'm sarcastic. I come from a sarcastic family. But that is a character defect because I'm not being true to myself and I'm not following my values and goals, where I want to be spoken to. I don't want to be patronized and I don't want to be spoken to in a disrespectful way. And so I don't want to be doing that to other people. Sarcasm is a truthful thing you have in your soul that you kind of deliver to another person to either shame them or because you're filled with shame, but it's just not something you're saying in a congruent, um, authentic way. It's certainly not productive either, because one of my values is when I speak and engage with other people, for it to be meaningful and productive, and have an exchange with another person. Guess what? When I'm sarcastic, they don't really want to talk to me anymore. I just kind of threw a match on a kerosene on a container of kerosene, and I've just, made the problem bigger. So those are things that I think socially, we wouldn't go, oh, sarcastic person, character defect, you're a bad person. But it's really just an opportunity to take a step back and say, what kind of behaviors are not working for me? Do I have too short of a temper with my children? Oh God, right now, screens, right? I feel like we all were like pretty into our screens and love to numb out on our phones and texting and doing everything in a screen setting. And now I feel like it's definitely at the cost of me getting the things done that I want to get done for my own personal well-being. It certainly isn't stuff that like fills my soul and fills my cup. That's the stuff that I do usually off the screen. It causes me to not be fully present with my children. And it makes me feel like, oh yeah, and then look at what I'm doing. I'm role modeling this to them to also not be fully present with other people. The human connection that is so necessary for down regulation, for safety, safety, for I hear you, I see you, I'm a safe place. I'm not getting those messages across to my children when I have my phone right here. So there's things like that that with the help of a therapist, help of a sponsor, and kind of going through your step 4 and your step 5, you can really start reviewing what kind of stuff is not working for you. If a lot of your insanity has to do with losing your temper or maybe overworking and trying to please everybody, but then pleasing nobody in the process, maybe you have a lying issue, even if it's white lies, or just little lies here and there. The big question is what are your values? What are your goals? Do you have to lie and manipulate to do any of these behaviors? If the answer is yes to any of those things, then that's a potential character defect, and that's part of step 6 is trying to kind of prepare yourself to remove these defects of character. Now, I'll talk more about step 7, because in the book I actually combine the two for the non-addicts. Now, addicts, I want you to understand that the 12 steps are the 12 steps for a reason. And so addicts should certainly be taking them individually. But step 6 and 7 do go hand in hand with each other. We are entirely ready to have a higher power remove all these defects of character. And then you humbly ask that higher power to remove the shortcomings. Now, there's a reason why they're separated, right? It's a very arduous process. And by the way, a really usually yucky feeling process to have to sit down and explore that step 4 and kind of get your feedback from that sponsor or therapist from after the step 5 to say, look, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing these repetitive patterns where you rage and then you hurt everyone's feelings and you go act out, or you work your tail off and you're a martyr and you say yes, yes, yes till your tank is empty, and then you just go out and use, or you go out and shop and spend thousands of dollars, or you overeat, or you run yourself ragged until your soul is empty and you're sad and you're depressed. I'm just seeing that pattern. And then the step 6 is where we just kind of you go through that pattern and really sort it out. I'm sure if this should feel like blah because it is, but that's why they broke it down into step 6 and 7. So there's a couple other things I want you to hear. So Scott says that for some recovering addicts, it helps to realize that in letting go of these character defects, they are not giving up something. Rather, they are learning to behave differently in ways that serve them. They are not losing, they are gaining by learning to acquire new skills. So he uses the examples of as you prepare in step 6 about, okay, what's not been working for me? These are the patterns. Is not just saying I lie, right? Because that can feel, I'm a liar. That can feel very shaming, very blah. And there's a period, there's a moment where we do need to kind of dip ourselves into the swamp to realize that we're capable of being very imperfect, kind of brutal people. But then he strongly encourages you to do affirmations, compile a list of affirmations. So I am telling the truth in all matters. I no longer want to keep secrets to the important people in my life. I feel better about myself when I tell the truth versus when I'm dishonest. So these are kind of ways that are really changing your brain. Our brains, whether you like to own it or not, we like to think we're these unique spiritual beings, but our brains are programmable. They can be wired around our trauma, or they can be wired around a new framework to help us overcome those traumas, transform unhealthy behaviors, sadness, depression, and really bad coping skills. But you have to work at it. And there's a lot of science that shows that affirmations can help with that rewiring. And again, that's going to be talked a little bit more in step 7. Let me see what else is that. What's interesting about step 6 and exploring your character defects is I've personally found as a non-addict working the steps that a lot of my character defects are kind of like my blessings, like my superpower and my curse. So one of the examples that I use is that I'm a masterful liar, that I can I found myself when I look at my patterns of insanity, I would just say things like, my phone would ring and I wouldn't get to my phone. I say, "Oh, sorry, I was stepping out of the shower," but I wasn't stepping out of the shower. And there was a part of me that was like, "Why? Like, why do I just even say that?" Like, and I ultimately figured out it's me always hustling for my worthiness. So much of my value and worth was about always being productive and always doing something meaningful and not wasting time, not being productive. And so when someone calls me, I want to show them that I didn't not answer the phone because I was twiddling my fingers or watching TikTok videos or something, because that would make me not valuable. That would make me below valuable. But if I lied and said I was doing something productive, then, but I'm just saying, when you explore these character defects, you can start seeing the underbelly of them and the deeper meaning and more complexity of it. And so the reason why I can't lie anymore is it's definitely not because I don't want to lie. I mean, lying can get you out of some really uncomfortable situations. Why you don't have to go to the person's party, why you'd rather get a massage than work, why like all these reasons. You can just make up a lie and then know that everyone's going to like you and not think you're weird because you just made up a story that you think is better for them. But the truth is we talk so much about shame. And the problem is, wherever you go, there you are. And you know that you lied. And every lie that I say, I'm a step farther away from being my authentic self, the authentic self that I like enough that I'm willing to be vulnerable to get real connection with other human beings. The authentic person that really does believe that I try my hardest, that can kind of fight for myself and defend myself when those shame voices come at me and go, "Are you sure you don't suck? Because this is all the evidence that I have of how selfish you are, of what a annoying package this is," and all those voices. But when I am lying, I have a lot of evidence that says, "Oh, yeah, no, maybe I am a horrible person." And when I do my best to stay authentic and honest, that really is a hard story to sell in my brain. So I want you to understand the purpose of step 6. That's what I feel like. Is step 5 is shame resiliency, but then step 6 is kind of the maintenance of it. We I you lead someone into your walk-in closet and it's messy and it's imperfect and it's scattered and and then someone goes, "Yeah, me too. I get it. Like my closet's pretty messy too." And you go, "Oh, okay. I'm not a freak. I'm not going to be broken for life. I'm not a horrible human that's incapable of being loved and not valued. There's other people here that struggle." But then 6 and 7 are the reinforcement and the maintenance that's necessary after that to say, "Okay, so then let's start cleaning up a little bit. Let's clean up. Is this closet everything you want it to be? Or if we really started doing some tough work, what would we rather clean up? What would we rather replace it with?" And so that now that we know better, we can do better. So one of the suggestions is to kind of set up a chart, 3 things of writing what the character defect is, the problems that it caused, to just kind of help you remember, right? When I'm on my phone too much, I'm not present with my partner, I'm maybe not thinking my own thoughts, I'm not doing meditation or anything that's for self care. Really, what I feel like is self care, long term self care, and replacement. Setting a time limit on how much that I'm on the phone, deleting social media apps, setting up time to have face-to-face one-on-one walks with my family or engagement with my family, etc. So you get it. It's just kind of digging in. And character defects is a really strong word, but I just kind of want you to think of more of the stuff that's just not working for me. It's just really like, we don't like words like manipulation and lying and character defects. Those all sound so judgmental, and we want to originally just be like, "Ugh, I don't have character defects. Like, I haven't, hurt my family and lied and snuck around and abused alcohol." So we're not ready to take that on. But it's really just step 1 through 5. You kind of own stuff's not working for you anymore. And step 6, kind of sit down and digging into that particular facet a little bit further. Remember that when we're talking about relieving character defects, we are not talking about perfectionism. So that's something I want you to understand. We are not cleaning up the closet so it always looks perfect and wonderful. So when people walk by the closet, they go, oh, wow, Kristin has her stuff together. Look at her. I want to have a closet that's so well organized as that. No, it is not what we are going for. And there's a difference. Perfectionism is externally driven, right? It's based on, I want you all to think this about me, versus internally driven, improving upon character defects is because this isn't working for me. I want to be the best person I can be. And these character defects, these behaviors that aren't working for me anymore, that are not congruent to my values and goals, and I have to maybe lie or manipulate to keep them going, I want to do better on these. So don't think of it as perfection. And definitely we could see the way addicts could swing over to, right? I'm going to go from being this hot mess alcoholic to now I'm going to do 3 meetings a day and I'm going to execute everything perfectly. And I'm going to think of the 12 steps and the program as a very legalistic, like black and white thing, right? We can always swing over to controlling and perfectionism. And that's not the healthy way that we're going for either. We're going for that center spot where we know that we're imperfect. We know that in moments of stress and in moments of exhaustion, they had the halt, the hungry, angry, lonely, tired. These moments where we're challenged, we're going to err on going back to those not so pretty things. But we have to constantly be practicing to try to stay out of those character defects with the help of others, with the help of community, with the help of a higher power, everything around us. So I think that's about it for step 6.
Good stuff. I think your visual of the head down and I'm so focused, and I really believe that that is true. We miss out on the good stuff of life when we're so focused on hanging on to things. And I know people balk at using character defects and don't like the language and all that. But shortcomings, areas that are not serving me well, all of those things.
Yeah.
It's really just it doesn't have to be, oh, you're so horrible. I was thinking when you were talking about, being your authentic self, and first of all, lying is like, it's a lot of work because you got to remember who you told what lie to. And it's like, what the truth is, and then what these lies are. And did I tell that lie to that person, or it's just exhausting. But the thing that I always think of with lies is it keeps me away from other people. It's a
Mm,
huge barrier, because if you really knew me, Kristin, I have to have this facade, but if you really knew me, if I let you see the real me, you wouldn't really like me. So I'm always less than, I'm always not going to be able to be connected. I have to be willing to show you who I am. And if you don't like it, that's okay. I have to be okay with that. But I want to have relationships with people who see the real me and can tolerate that, or like that, whatever that is. Those are the meaningful relationships. Because I'm an addict, so in my addiction, I always had the facade of whatever. It was never perfection. It was like I was doing the best I could. Hot mess comes to mind. But I always knew that I was keeping pieces of me from people, so that they didn't see the real me. And I knew for sure if they saw who I really was, it was, like, oh, couldn't possibly tolerate being around you. Those steps saved my life, because I had people that said, oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, so typical. I mean, all of those things, they help normalize it. I think 6 and 7 are easy to overlook. It's kind of like, oh yeah, do that in 30 seconds and move on. But what you shared is so true, that it's the maladaptive coping mechanisms. There's reasons why we do all the things that we do, and it's trying to navigate life that we don't have the tools to do. And so, and I work with a lot of partners too, and they're like thinking, okay, my addict, they quit doing the behavior, so now they should have empathy. They should magically know how to do all of these things, and they have zero skills in doing it. It's, we have to learn all of these things. And the 12 steps gives us the recipe of do this, then do that, and then do that, and do it with other people who are going to help. They're going to go, yeah, here, let me show you how to do this. I mean, that's how we learn and grow and get different. I think it's, I've referred Life Anonymous to a lot of people. People get hung up on labels. They don't want to be labeled an addict or whatever. for me, it was a relief because it was like, oh my gosh, there's actually a reason why I'm doing all these crazy things.
Mm,
But if you don't need the label, then just going, there's a better way to do things. I don't have to live in the chaos. I don't have to, to live with the my life being a huge messy closet. I mean, there are ways to do things differently. When you were talking about sarcasm, um, like I used to find it incredibly funny, because I like sarcasm, and I still actually probably do, but my
yeah,
husband, who tolerates like a lot, this is decades ago, he said, I can handle almost anything, but your sarcasm I cannot. I just can't. And I had this moment of going, and there's always the bite behind it. It's like, yeah,
of
getting my
course.
message across, but I'm going to do it in a gotcha. And I was like, I'm going to lose this amazing man if I don't learn to temper my tongue. And I swear, like, I probably needed to bandage my tongue from biting it so much I mean, I had to learn because it was the first thing out of my mouth. I had to learn
Yeah,
to stop and think and go, do you really want to say that, or is there a better way to say this? And I learned, and what I really found was, because it was in a it mattered moment for me with him, like it cut it out. I just don't do it with other people. It stopped it, for the most part. I mean, I can't even think of the last time I did something wicked sarcastic, and I had a wicked sarcastic tongue. But it was a reflection in that moment of, yeah, I learned to do it differently. Was there
yeah,
pain
and
involved?
that's a
Yes.
perfect example too, because I notice I still do sarcasm because it's a character defect of mine. It's not going to wither away into nothingness. It's going to exist.
Hmm.
But now when I am sarcastic, so for instance, in communicating with my husband, it's my symptom. It's my
Hmm.
red flag within myself to say, whew, you've got some like unspoken resentment, or you are exhausted, or you are feeling empty right now. And so I've done enough work. I can always do more, but I've
Hmm.
done enough work with the character defects to know that they're usually a symptom of feeling unseen, unheard, unappreciated, feeling really resentful towards people, feeling literally physically exhausted or mentally exhausted. And so when you do the work on step 6 to know this is my stuff, these are my go-to kind of like little devils on my shoulder. This is what I'm
Hmm.
capable of when I'm not at my best. They can be that red flag or even maybe a yellow flag to say, slow down. You are behaving this way because there's something inside you need to stop and listen and really figure out what's going on here. So they're actually a really great tool
Yes.
when you're
Yes.
trying to be a better person.
If we're looking for the flags, if we look for the yellow flag instead of just blazing through,
Right.
and go, oh, what it really is going on, and taking that little personal inventory of like, okay, I didn't sleep good last night. I haven't had breakfast, whatever it is, or like, yeah, I mean, I get moments where I feel like everybody wants something from me, and,
Hmm.
and I'm tapped out. And if I don't take I can't answer the phone for a little while, and it's okay. I mean, I just have to go, like, they can leave a voicemail, I will call them back, and it's going to be okay, because otherwise, that shortness within me is going to come through on the phone too. It's not good for anybody if I'm in that completely depleted state. So it's
Right.
really not good. So.
And that's the kind of classic someone who doesn't do 6 and 7, well, and then 8 and 9 too, but are those classic dry drunks,
Hmm.
right? They can maybe, so the definition of dry drunk is usually someone who doesn't do their addictive behavior anymore. So they might stop sexually acting out, doing the drugs, drinking the alcohol, gambling, but they still have all these character defects. They still are very passive aggressive. They're very narcissistic. They're very the martyrs, and are constantly feeling exhausted and operating out of that exhaustion. So that is why 6 and 7 are so important to this entire process of change. Is without them you just can kind of metaphorically be that dry drunk. Okay, I don't do this particular bad thing anymore, but I still do these things that don't exactly fill my tank and make me feel like I'm a good human.
Well, and if the goal of life is to be in healthy attachments and to be connected with people and to be, I mean, and I don't use happy so much because happy feels to me like contingent on external things,
Right.
but I have joy, and I
Yeah,
can have joy
meaningful
even,
relationships.
yeah, I can have joy even when things are, kind of crummy on the outside, I can have joy. I don't have to, to be going, oh, everything is horrible, so I can have gratitude, all of those things. That's meaningful. I was also thinking, we were talking about the pendulum swinging, and I was like, I used to be, the only time I was in the middle was when I was on the other way to the other extreme, and I'm in the, with the steps and with the program and with learning, like my pendulum isn't, so huge, but it's also like, if I'm not on that, in that, close to the center, I'm never like I'm never like
Yeah.
completely centered, but if I'm like mostly kind of, in that middle ground, kind of swinging, I'm okay, when I'm start going to these other spots, then I know, like, I'm not, I'm missing something and I need to, attend to it. So I love the steps, obviously. I, like it, yeah, but I did the steps, and I didn't just, like, sit in meetings, but I also worked with qualified people to help me. I mean,
Right.
I needed more help. And so, but the benefit of doing that, it has been amazing in my life that I'm a contributing member of society is kind of a surprise, so
Not
from
just a
the
contributing member of society. You
no,
hope
but
other people dig themselves
yeah,
out of crisis and
but
disaster too,
if
but
you saw me before I got in the program, there, you would kind of go, you would be going like, lock
yeah,
her
and
up,
that's actually the most interesting thing about addicts versus non-addicts is you'd say maybe because you're drinking too much and going out and
Oh,
dating unhealthy people and the funny thing is you look I'd like to say that you look back at who I was at like 30 and see that maybe I wasn't abusing drugs or dating toxic people, but like I had a really unhealthy marriage that I didn't even know was unhealthy. I was just constantly running on that treadmill, trying to, again, speaking of perfectionism and being external driven, just felt like that urge of keeping up the Joneses, trying to perfect my
mm,
body, trying to perfect myself as a parent. So I wasn't doing those socially unacceptable things. In fact, I was quite blending with society,
mm,
right? Anyone who
mm-hmm,
looked was like, oh yeah, she's winning, killing it.
mm,
But the truth is my soul was empty. I was
mm,
passive aggressive, sarcastic, resentful, exhausted, not like living in congruency with my values and goals. And so that really was the idea behind the Life Anonymous is just you don't have to be, what our society has said is this is officially a sign that you're struggling. This is officially what makes you a hot mess and someone who needs help. Like I felt like I just went under the radar.
mm.
I could play it off so well, but like my soul was so empty.
Yeah, and the transformation with doing these things, and they are not all fun. Writing out an inventory isn't fun. Sharing those things, pulling this, dirty laundry out into the light isn't fun. But man, to not have to haul that stuff around, and be loaded down and weighted down by that, and like I loved what you talked about affirmations. At different times. Well, I still do. I've got post-it notes around my computer, but I'll have them on the bathroom mirror, whatever. Like if there's something I need to hear like regularly, it's on a post-it so that I keep getting that message because, otherwise I'll forget. So it's like if I keep seeing it, I go, oh yeah, but those affirmations, they change me. And I've shared this with you before that, I was out running one day and I was doing like I thought of something that I forgot to do. And like I immediately went to oh, you're such an idiot and all that. And I thought my friend Kristin Snowden would say, I mean, like I have the ability to pull out voices and go, that's a shame voice and that's not the reality. I mean, like all of those things. But that, I've had to learn that because the
Right.
first voice was, you're an idiot,
Right.
well, it just was not my finest moment. And, I fixed whatever it was. It was just,
Yeah, and that's actually a great point about the 12 steps is that it's supposed to be done in community. So when you're sharing your character flaws, like I said, these are yellow flags, red flags that are saying maybe I'm not going to relapse or my marriage isn't going to go to divorce immediately or I'm not going to, harm my
mm,
children extreme like gravely. But golly gee, if I'm saying these character defects to people and in my community, my therapist, a couple of trusted friends, other people, and they know my character defects of what do I look like when I'm not in my greatest place, they can help me say, wow, like you are being really sarcastic. What is going on with
mhm,
you? Or wow, you seem to be restricting your food in a way that you're trying to perfect your body in a certain way. What's going on there? And they can help you pull your head out of your, you know what, basically, when there's a couple people around you who know your character defects, can acknowledge that they're just signs and warning signs of not you being in a great place, and help you. I mean,
Mhm,
really, in the best situations, that's what relationships are supposed to be,
mhm,
is these like
mhm.
safe spaces where we help each other understand things, down regulate, up regulate, and kind of coexist with each other.
I always know when my family's going like, "So, are you gonna go to your noon meeting today?" I'm going like, "Oh, that's the really not so subtle, you probably no, you need to go do a little bit of more self-care." But, honestly, come back from that and like I can tell, I can feel a transformation. It just the settling in and refocusing, reframing. It's like it's so helpful. So, we anybody have questions? The Q&A is at the bottom of the screen. We're conversing clearly, but if you have questions, we'd love to have those asked uh,
And it
for
doesn't have to
Kristin to
be
answer. So,
about the 12 steps. It can be,
correct.
if you're a betrayed partner and you have questions, or an addict in recovery, we try
So
to
let's
cover
talk
it all.
about betrayed partner because can't tell you how many times I type out to send people to your website because Kristin does a great job with betrayed partners. She's got some workshops and other support for betrayed partners. So while we have a moment, why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on with you on those
Sure. Yeah,
aspects? So.
I currently have a workshop that is open. It's starting June 29th. If it doesn't fill up, though, I'm going to close it. So if you are thinking of signing up, email me at kristinsnowdenmft@gmail.com and ask whatever questions or whatever you want to know. But I keep it really small. I never have more than 8 people. And it's just a 5-week group where we meet for an hour and a half and we do a lot of education, sometimes processing. I give you exercises. There's a lot of questions that are asked about what addiction recovery looks like. Betrayal trauma, I do a lot of work and education on what betrayal trauma looks like and how to heal from that. The ladies, the one of the main purposes is so that you can finally find a safe space to share the story of what you've been dealing with your addict partner, because so many of these partners are, I can't tell my family, I can't tell my friends, I haven't even decided if I'm staying or not. Or even some of the people have left the relationship and they're just trying to find support, and they're putting the pieces together, unfortunately, retroactively, after the very confusing, very traumatizing breakup occurred and they didn't even know what led to the breakup. So those are currently being registered. So you can go to kristinsnowden.com and register for them. And I try to add a new one every month or so.
Yes, and I do refer, and I've heard from people who have participated, very positive feedback, which is why I keep sending, people to those. So we have obviously on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, maybe not obviously on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, we have free betrayed partner groups. There's one Wednesdays at 12:30 Pacific time. There's another one Thursday morning. The Old Lady Posse is on Tuesday mornings. Sunday, the Old Lady Posse, they named it. But we all, we have we have a betrayed partner group from just men on Tuesday nights. So there's a lot of
Good.
support for betrayed partners, but there's also support for female addicts. And we've got a transgender group that
Oh, great.
has begun now too. The Cruise Control is the gay guys group, and then we've got a number of groups. And we talk about attachment issues and things, and Troy Love is offering a twice a month on Thursdays, partners attachment healing group. So we're
Hmm.
really looking to have support for you, all free. Yeah, everybody that's on this platform volunteers their time, but we want it to be a safe space where you can get support. We do have a couples Healing from Betrayal workshop that will start June 17th. That is a workshop, 2 hours, 6 weeks. That's on seekingintegrity.com. And then the next men's sex and porn addiction 101 work group will start July 10th. Those have been filling up. So this one will be on a Saturday. They've been on weeknights, but this will be on a Saturday morning. Those have been filling up for the last few months. So if you want to register, 6 weeks, 90 minutes, it's live. It's not just video. So there's a facilitator. supporting the education and connection on those as well. So that's again on seekingintegrity.com. So all resources, lots of, Dr. Rob does 2-hour consultations, expert consultations. So you can always reach me at Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com, if you're looking for specific resources or support too. So Kristin, we don't have any questions.
I
So
know. I
I
think this is
know.
the first time in like 2.5
I
years of doing
know.
this that I don't have any questions.
Oh, and
Oh,
then we do.
and
So
then suddenly there is.
are you starting the part 1 workshop on June 30th? So
Yes.
yes.
There
Yes.
are 2 workshops, as you see, in their Betrayed Partner 1 and 2. But actually, several of my betrayed partners who are doing the group decided for the first time in a long time, I'm also offering what I call courageous connection workshops, which are
Mm,
co-ed. And I'm a Daring Way facilitator. So I have a lot of Brene Brown's workbooks on the gifts of imperfection, daring greatly, rising strong. This kind of helps you walk through in a community concepts around shame resiliency. So these are the things that I want to do. This is how I want to show up as an authentic person, a vulnerable person, and kind of helps you walk through the best way to do that. So several of the Betrayed Partners participants are now going to do that. So both
mm.
workshops are open to newcomers. So there's only a few people. So I guess my point is you can sign up for either one. Both are
Or both.
available, and right, and
Yeah.
they're for any kind of, whether you are coming in for the first time or you've been doing this for many, many weeks or months.
Yeah, and you kind of touch on it. The Daring Greatly is Brene Brown, who's pretty well known, but her shame resiliency work is brilliant. She tags on to John Bradshaw, who wrote bunches of things about shame and shame resiliency too. So like it's really good work. But having somebody like Kristin, who's been trained specifically to help work through shame. I mean, we get questions all the time on some of the other webinars as well. How do I get through shame? And and there's no magic. Oh, do this and this and then you'll
Right.
magically be through shame. Shame is one of those things where you shame resiliency. I mean, that's how we learn is shame reduction, shame resiliency, but the tools to use in order to do that. And some of the things that we talked about, like just sharing with other people and having people go, yeah, me too, I
Mhm.
get it, that
10,
that
11,
really
and
changes.
12 are
Hmm.
shame resiliency
Hmm.
practices, right?
Hmm.
I'm sorry, steps 10, 11, and 12, which they call the maintenance. Like those who are in recovery live in steps 10, 11, and 12. And really, those are just behaviors and practices and soul filling self care exercises to help you stay in a state of being able to be resilient against shame.
And I used to think that resiliency was something you had or you didn't have. And then Dr. David Fawcett, I was with him on one of the webinars, and he was talking about it's like a muscle. You build it up. So
Yeah.
it like we all have it. We just may have weak muscles for resiliency, but we can learn. And so I was like, oh, that's so hopeful. It's
Yeah.
like, I think that's an amazing thing. So
Same thing
okay,
with empathy and compassion. It's not
yes.
like we are not born with empathy and compassion. You have to build up the muscle, and there's like a
Mhm,
skill set to it.
mhm.
So,
So we have a question. I am an addict who's currently struggling with getting down on myself. For example, when you were discussing character defects, I started to feel defective. How can I get past these moments? Because sometimes I feel like I get stuck and halt progress. Thank you very much.
so there's lots of things that come to my mind. First of all, I know it. I'm one of those people that when you would I do like power yoga because I needed it to be like very beating me down in order to feel like I was working out. And then when they would lay down to do the meditation, I'd be like, I don't got time for that crap. I got to go run on the treadmill and burn some calories. So I'm trying to tell you that I come from a place that the following things I'm going to tell you, I was like, no, I don't have time for that stupid stuff. But then I kept reading research after research, expert after expert, and they all say the same things, which is having a practice of affirmations and gratitude lists actually help you move out of the getting down on yourself and practicing more empathetic, self-compassionate type of frameworks within your mind. So Tammy was talking about I run and then I realized I forgot that thing. And first thing is like, God, why do you take so much stuff on? You're failing at everything, to switching to a space of like, you know what, you just need to organize better. You're going to go back and tell the person you're sorry for not calling them back when you were supposed to be calling them. And this is repairable. This is not the fact that you're defected. It's that you just need to do better with your time management or more post-it notes.
Mm-hmm.
Take on less responsibility. But the difference between destroying yourself and bringing you down into that shame swamp and then loving yourself and forgiving yourself and affirming yourself is just a practice. That's literally the only difference. We want to think that it's some, like she was just saying, a magical step of why do these people have value and worth? Why do they seem to forgive themselves? They've done horrible things. They should feel horrible about themselves. Why are they smiling and walking around with gratitude and joy and meaningful relationships? And I want to say the difference is that they have a practice. They have and that's the other thing too, is I wonder with your getting down on yourself. I know when I'm in a bad place and I'm really destroying myself, I can't just do the affirmations and empathy and compassion in my own soul. When it's really bad, I need to go to a couple trusted people, one or two, who can hear my story and not judge me for it. And I need to speak it to them. And usually they can meet it with empathy and compassion. And there is something magical about speaking it. Really, technically, they say because the shame happens in that kind of lizard brain where it just freaks out back there. It's not where your logical thought
Mm-hmm.
is, your rational thought occurs. And the act of bringing a language to it and saying it really changes the game of the way that you see it, the framework. You see their face expressions of hearing it and they don't freak out and go, "Oh my God, you did that?" They go,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh yeah, me too. I did that like last week. And actually I'm doing it right now as we speak." And you hear that you are not this freak, that you're on this similar journey of healing and being better and doing better. And those are all shame resiliency practices.
And what I also see is you got hung up on the defects of character, defect. And so then you're feeling like you are defective. With my inventory on my 4 step, I had to write down things that were in the positive column too. It wasn't just all the horrible things I did. So with my character defects, Kristen alluded to it, the things that were, I mean, I in kindergarten, I'm a leader, well, that's really great on lots of aspects. It's also, it can be a character defect. So
Right.
it can serve me really well in many ways. It can also be, the other side of the double
I'm a
edge,
control freak that's
yeah,
inflexible
yeah,
and
yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah,
take
yeah.
influence from other people.
Yes, yeah, all of those things. So it isn't, so they aren't, it isn't as black and white, but for me, and like what Kristen was sharing too, it's like, what isn't serving you well? You write it down that way. Harriet Hunter did a couple weeks ago, did a journaling webinar, and she talked about journaling. I would invite you to write down and journal and see what you see in that. Take it to your sponsor, take it to your therapist, and see what you're seeing, because the swamp and getting it is not serving you well. It's also, and Dr. Rob would say this, it's also a little narcissistic if you are just focusing on, oh, I'm so horrible, oh, so that's the other side of that same thing as well. So you don't have to focus on just the defect. It's like, these are character defects. It's not I'm defective. These are some aspects about myself that aren't serving me well, that aren't my best moments. I don't use, I try not to use good and bad for myself anymore, because I feel like if I did something good or if I did something bad, then I'm good or bad. And I do some things that, that serve me better. I do some things that don't serve me as well, but that doesn't change who I intrinsically am. I am who I am, and I'm just always striving to be a better version of me, but I'm not going to arrive. So next question. I am a betrayed partner. Though we are 18 months past disclosure and doing well, when my husband does something that hurts my trust, like not following through on a promise, I have thoughts that if he relapsed, then I'd have a good reason to leave. Is this part of the recovery process? That's a
Yeah.
really interesting question.
It's a great question. And
Yeah,
I think it's a common question. So I want
yeah.
to affirm you for having the courage to type that out and say it. I do think it's part of the recovery process because I rarely have met a betrayed partner that doesn't spend a pretty long time saying, "Am I making the right choice? Do I want to take this on for the next part of my lifetime?" Gosh, yeah, when I'm learning about addiction, if I own that my partner's truly an addict, there are chances of relapse. And do I really want to put up with this a lot? Then don't forget there's also the neurobiological effect is that your body definitely 18 months later, even though he's made positive changes, your body is still kind of looking at him going, "Are you that bear? Are you going to kill me? Are you going to do something completely unpredictable and uncalculable and hurt me and destroy me?" And so your body back here, speaking of lizard brain, is constantly watching him saying, "How are you going to screw up? How are you going to screw me over? How are you going to lie?" And so oftentimes, if you can imagine feeling that and experiencing that from the partner, you're going to want to find, okay, just give me a reason to run away. Just give me one reason because I'm already like a part of me is still so like traumatized by you, so off put by you. I have this guilty, obligated part that's like, "Oh, you're doing so well. I want to like affirm you. And we probably have this family and we probably have this history. But right now, I also need to own the other piece, which is like, God, you feel so unsafe to me." And I wonder if that's what's going on. I mean, for sure, you can definitely explore with a therapist, a trained therapist, about is that a little voice in your head saying that you didn't want to work out the marriage? I have no idea. But there's also the neurobiological effect that occurs that a person can be appearing to do everything right, can be appearing to be safer and healthier, but our body holds on to trauma and the negative parts of our history so hard because it wants to keep you alive that that could be the reason why you're kind of always looking for the exit sign. But I don't know, what are you thinking, Tammy?
I concur, and I was thinking, Troy Love I mentioned earlier, but he talks about betrayal, the betrayal attachment wounds, and I thought every time your husband is not honoring whatever, like it isn't trustworthy, that's poking at that betrayal wound, and that wound hasn't completely healed, and
Mm,
and it's going to take
mm-mm.
more time. But every time something, it's like you have a gash, and it's like starting to heal, and then oh, poke, poke, poke. So that completely makes sense to me. Dr. Rob talks about ambivalent, being the ambivalent love too. I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you. It would completely make sense that, do I want to do this, and we have talked about, you can't naively go back to, yes, this person's my partner, we're always going to be together side by side, facing against the world. He's hurt you, he
Right.
can hurt you. So it's eyes wide open, and it's not as much fun because it was nice to be in the naive, we're in this together. So
There was a client, it's making me think of this, that every time her partner, her addict partner, took on a certain tone of voice, or like you were saying, didn't follow through on something, kind of went back to his old behavior, maybe not full on relapsing, but went back to his old character. She would find herself on the phone looking for rental properties,
oh
like
wow.
places where she could go move into if she
Hmm.
had to. And she
Hmm.
noticed it was a pattern, but really, if she had to pay attention to what it did to her chemistry, is when he'd take that old tone of voice or behave that way, that would scare her and she'd feel out
Hmm.
of control. And so her way of kind of calming her neurobiology was saying, you know what, you don't have to stay here. And in fact, okay, if you had this much money, right? She was a very logistical, concrete, like she wanted to go into the logistics and concrete
Hmm.
of it because
Hmm.
she can't fix the messiness of an
Hmm.
emotion of love and a breakup of a marriage. But she could go into, okay, you have this much for your budget. That means you could get these houses and this could be the custody of the kids. And that going back into that concreteness actually calmed her down. So I thought that was a really interesting coping skill.
I think so too, because it's like you don't have control over any of that, but I do have control, and I have choices. Because I think it's really
Yeah, good
challenging if
point.
you feel like you don't have any choices and I'm stuck. And she was going like, I have choices.
I have
I can
choices.
do this. I have another location. I mean, I can come up with a plan, and then then you've got a choice. I can stay in this and we can navigate it, or I can find another place. So,
Off to the side, we're gonna be done, but I think people are trying to find how to find each.
okay.
I think now you
All
can
of the,
type in
yeah,
people's names, right?
yeah,
To
you can, but on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, all spelled out, which is how you get to these webinars live. You'll see online groups, and there's a tab for that, or events has the calendar. So either of those are tabs. There's a men's group for male addicts every Friday morning. Troy's on there, and then twice a week, or twice a month on Thursdays, he's working with partners. So both of those, and he has his Finding Peace workbook that you can go through yourself. He's got a lot of support. He works with the guys that are in our treatment program as well, and the attachment wounds are so real, and just
right.
being able to go, oh wait, I mean, I had it not too like in the last couple of weeks where I was like, oh, that's tapping into my abandonment wound. Like, but just to be able to name it and go, rather than just being caught up in the emotion, go, oh, I'm feeling that abandonment. I'm feeling like no one's listening to me, no one's hearing me. Well, like that's a very different place to be able to go, that's a message that I'm getting, and how do I act rather than just react and cause a drama scene. So, but anyway, so that's I think we
Yep.
are past out of time. So thank you for all the great questions.
Time's up.
Come back and join us again. Next month will be step 7, and it ties obviously into 6, but continue to look into Life Anonymous. And then for betrayed partners, check out the on Kristin, Kristin Snowden .com website, the betrayed partner groups, and you can always reach out to Kristin as well. So
Right.
thanks
Feel free
everybody.
to email me, or you can do it through the website. But thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thanks, Kristin. Take care.
Bye.